What does humanity need right now? I'm sure this is a question that many of you are asking in the face of everything that we're witnessing in the world right now. It seems like we're moving from crisis to crisis, from war to war. There's social discontent that can be found on every corner. But what can we do about it? What can we do about this world on fire, this world of permacrisis, the Collins Dictionary word of 2022 last year? How do we break free from all of these patterns, these destructive patterns? How do we find a world where freedom, prosperity, and peace can be found? Well, we recently asked the question to our audience, what does humanity need right now? And we were blown away with the responses. We had over 2,500 people respond to that question. So in this episode, I'm going to share the top 10 most common things that you told us that humanity needs right now. Now, number one, number one, a miracle. We need a miracle. It certainly might feel like that. Now, the surprising amount of people, it's actually not surprising to see how many people actually said either a miracle or the return of some sort of divine God or Jesus or some sort of spiritual or religious intervention to solve the challenges that we're facing right now. It's not surprising at all. But if we zoom out in terms of what that actually represents at this present moment in history, it's a sense of desperation, of hopelessness, or the belief that the challenges facing humanity right now are so daunting and complex that only an extraordinary or unexpected event or intervention could bring about positive change under these circumstances. Now, while a sense of a miracle can bring that sense of urgency or the need for extraordinary solutions, it's essential to recognize that through history, humanity has found ways to overcome its challenges through collaborative action, creativity, innovation. Miracles are certainly possible, but human ingenuity can solve these issues as well through determination and collaboration. But perhaps this speaks to something higher too. Perhaps this is a seeking for some moral guidance, some spiritual, ethical pathway that brings us into a place of hope and unity and higher purpose, a sense of divinity to break down those barriers between us. But it's not surprising at all that people are looking for a miracle in the times that we're living through right now. Now, what also comes with this notion is this sense of coming together. And that was number two, that the overall sentiment amongst people is that we need to come together, that we need to unify. We need to come together with love and tolerance and compassion and empathy. But what was really interesting about the conversation around unity is that it came in two forms and almost two sides of the same coin. One is the coming together in love and compassion to break down the things that divide us and find the things that we have in common to reconnect with a sense of love and reverence for all humanity. And that was then contrasted with unifying for mass action, for revolution, to transform the times we live in. And I think both are valid and both are very reasonable assessments of what we need right now. And I think we need both. I think we need to find a way to lovingly revolutionize the way we live our lives, because right now we're at the precipice of, global meltdown with what we're witnessing. And, the list of problems is growing and growing. Certainly, we need to find a way to come together. And, when we witness in the modern era war on our screens like we've never seen before, because when I was growing up in the 80s and 90s, you could see war on the television. It's a memory that I have from my childhood, sadly. But to some degree, we were so far removed from it that it never felt personal or real. But now social media puts us right on the front lines on our mobile phones. You can see the action firsthand. There is no filter anymore. So the need to unify is very clear. The need to return to love and tolerance and compassion is very clear. But it's also evident that we need to find a way to take action in order to create change. This idea of a revolution, of mass action. How do we do that peacefully? How do we do that lovingly? How do we create change? Is the big question that people are asking. How do we help humanity move forward? Now, this leads to another big ask. Decentralization of power. In fact, the way this is manifested is the amount of people that said we need to overthrow the elites or deconstruct the power structures or bring down the WEF, the World Economic Forum, to remove these unelected, unaccountable global bodies. There was a clear sentiment here overarching that we need to decentralize the power systems. We've become so centralized, so globally centralized, that the level of subsidiarity of our ability to create change, our ability to influence our own trajectory is so far removed from our day-to-day lives that these distant, unelected, unaccountable bodies are now, responsible for driving the trajectory of the world that we find ourselves in. So there is a real clear need for decentralization of power, for the return to democracy, for local decision-making and representation, for greater economic conditions for all, to redistribute the wealth amongst us all, not by force, but by compelling people to want to make a difference in their own communities, to find transparency, to find accountability, to find sovereignty, to find autonomy and respect for human rights. And again, these aren't all my words, but there's much that I agree with. What I'm sharing with you here is the 10 things that over 2,500 people shared when we asked the question, what does humanity need right now? Now, leading on from that desire for decentralization of power is political transformation. Again, it came through thick and fast, the need to create political transformation. We need new leadership in the world. We need new structures. We need localization. We need to reconnect with our decisions on a local basis. We need to be able to influence the lives that we lead. We don't need to leave that to the unelected bodies to make all the decisions for us. We need to be more engaged and more involved. And that's a two-way street. It's easy to see that the world has become more and more centralized because we've actually let go of the reins to some extent. We've become disengaged, disenfranchised. We've lost trust in the political system. We've lost trust in ourselves. So in order to build that trust once again, we have to find a way to have healthy mechanisms to influence decisions on a local basis. But that begins with engaging people to be part of the process. We need political engagement. We need political participation. We need to redefine what politics even means. It's beyond this stale party politics that holds us divided. We need to find new models of moving forward politically. This was evident and clear in the call to the question, what does humanity need right now? The next big one is a great awakening. Now, this came in many forms. With all of these answers, I've distilled 2,500 responses. I read them all. I read every single response, and I clustered them down into these 10 points, and every one of them has many nuances that I could cover. Now, this idea of a great awakening, this awakening really in the sense of coming into truth. We live in a world, this post-truth reality, this, postmodernist explosion of disconnection from rationality and critical thinking and common sense. We've lost our sense of awareness. We've lost our sense of reason. We've lost our sense of rationality. So on one dimension, this awakening is an awakening to the issues that we're seeing, and not just the surface level issues, but the deeper tranches of what's really causing these issues to emerge. An awakening to what's really happening and how these power dynamics are playing out, the political failings and how we're being corralled and how we're being divided and how we're being separated and how we're being kept on the treadmill in this mechanistic system that we belong to right now. So the awakening is really beyond simply witnessing what's happening in the world. It's restoring those principles of rationality and critical thinking. But at a higher level, it's about awakening to a higher level of consciousness, to a consciousness where we don't destroy each other, our property. We don't tear each other down. We don't result in war. This is a call to a higher level of consciousness as well as an awareness of what's happening in the world. It's consciousness, it's rationality, it's truth. Number 6 is personal responsibility and self-reliance. This ties in with everything that I've said so far. The need for agency, the need for resolve and autonomy on a local level, the need for people to take responsibility for the quality of their own lives, the need for people to take responsibility for their local communities, the need for people to take responsibility for the conditions we find ourselves in the outer world and not abdicate that responsibility to corrupt politicians and cronyism and distant authorities. It's reclaiming one's personal power and taking the responsibility back for our own education, for our own decisions, for our own well-being. It's that level of personal responsibility that can create self-reliance so that we can once again live our lives with autonomy and agency, and that we can find ways to prosper together peacefully. Number 7, we need to grow up. emotional and psychological maturity. And this played out in a number of ways in terms of people's responses: the need for healing, the need for honesty, the need for integrity, the need for forgiveness, the need for humility. All of this plays into that divine intervention, that need for spiritual moral guidance. But we also need to grow up, particularly online. You know, if you go into the physical world and an altercation breaks out, there's a fight, there's a war of words, it doesn't take very long for someone to intervene. We have a code of conduct, we have a moral standing that will break down the altercation before it descends into violent conflict. Yet on social media, we fight each other. There's no one to intervene. There's no higher ground. There's no common set of values. There's no common set of morals that we hold ourselves to. We are witnessing our global and individual and collective traumas playing out on social media. There's a need for us to grow up emotionally and psychologically develop ourselves so that we can break through these patterns. And again, all of these are your feedback. We had over 2,500 responses to our question, what does humanity need right now? And these are your responses. Number 8 is open conversations and nonviolent communication, leading in from the previous point. How do we have respectful and open dialogue? How do we find ways to listen first? How do we find ways to, as Stephen Covey would say, seek first to understand before being understood? Meaning we seek first to understand someone else's perspective. We want to lean in and understand why they think how they think and how they came to those conclusions before jumping in with our own. And therefore, breaking down the conditions of communication before the conversation has even emerged. How do we have this openness of dialogue? How do we break down the silos and echo chambers and have respectful discussion and dialogue? How do we explore ideas? How do we do so without shutting one another down? How do we do without ad hominem attacks? And how do we do so without othering or dividing further? How do we have open communication? Number 9 is local communities. On the premise of reviving and rejuvenating our local communities, restoring a sense of belonging, creating a sense of community, reconnecting with our local nature, reconnecting with our local ecosystem, reconnecting with our local decision-making process, bringing a sense of township, of kinship, working together on a local basis. And again, this is no surprise. Looking at the globalized nature of our world, we can't change that. We're living in an ever-connected, world of global trade. It's fantastic that we can explore the world of culture and cuisine and ideas and people. And in fact, the more we can do of that, the more we can perhaps understand one another. Again, if we do so with open minds and open hearts. But how do we do so without losing sight of what it means to be part of a local culture, a local community? How do we preserve and hold dear the foundations of what our local communities are built upon, whilst embracing positive change and a sense of openness within our own communities? And the last one, again, could have easily have gone as number 1. The amount of people, when I asked the question, what does humanity need right now? The amount of people that literally quoted a backbone, that society needs courage and resilience. Now, the fact that people are saying that the society needs a backbone right now, I think symbolizes a call for strength, resilience, assertiveness, determination to face our challenges and complexities in the current world, and to stand up where it's right to stand up. Because we know full well the last few years we've witnessed all manner of issues, but this silent majority that people are described as turning a blind eye, turning your back. It's the classic adage of what you permit, you promote. And unfortunately, we live in a world right now where people are self-censoring, they're turning a blind eye, they're turning their back on things. And people are asking, well, what are you going to do about it? And this ties into personal responsibility. And it brings it again back to that self-reliance, because we're not waiting for other people to develop a backbone. It's key for ourselves to develop the courage and resilience to model the change we want to see. So these are the 10 responses to the question, what does humanity need right now? They're not my answers, they're your answers. Over 2,500 people responded. I'd love to hear your thoughts, hear your feelings. What does humanity need right now? Because these 10 things, they sound simple, but they're far from easy. That miracle, number 1, a miracle You know, the sense of desperation in the world right now, the need for something extraordinary to create change, the need for higher purpose and ethical moral standing, the need to come together, the need for love and compassion, the need for us to collectively and individually take responsibility for the path ahead, the need to decentralize power, to break down these distant, unelected, unaccountable systems and restore that sense of localization with a level of subsidiarity where the decisions are made at the closest possible level to the situation itself. Driving new political transformation, seeking new leadership, developing new models and new structures, coming to a point of great awakening where we raise our consciousness, where we enter into a period of rationality and truth once more with critical thinking so that we open our eyes to the issues of the world and look for solutions. Number 6, personal responsibility, coming back to self-reliance and our ability to create change, to take responsibility, to not look outside ourselves for change, but instead to look inside ourselves for change. For us to grow up, to find a sense of emotional and psychological maturity, to take the higher ground, to work on ourselves, to heal our traumas, to heal our own wounds, and to find a way to grow ourselves, to develop ourselves so that we can become the change we wish to see. Number 8, to have open conversations and non-violent communication, to restore that sense of respectful dialogue and exchange of ideas, to create a sense of belonging on a local level, to build communities once again, and finally, to develop that backbone to courageously and boldly act with resilience in order to move forward. So what does the world need right now? You tell me. What do you think in the comments? What does humanity need right now? How can we achieve these 10 things? It sounds so simple, but it's far from easy. But the great thing is, all of these things are within our reach. All of these things are within our capability. And as I said right at the beginning, whilst it may seem bleak and desperate in the world right now, humanity has always prevailed when it faces challenges of this magnitude. But if we wait for other people to bring the solutions, then we could be waiting for a long time before things get better. And the old adage, things may get worse before they get better, becomes true. Let's turn the course of history right now. Let's figure out how we can help humanity grow from here. It's our chance to shine. And in this dark, bleak period, if we can shine our light brightly, then we can create change. So let me know in the comments, what do you believe humanity needs right now? You're tuning into me, Dan Astin-Gregory, on the Pandemic Podcast today. These are your responses. These are your answers to the question, what does humanity need right now? We had over 2,000 responses, over 2,500 responses. This is my summary of all of those 2,500 summary responses condensed down into 10 clusters. So I want to thank everyone who participated, everyone who shared their ideas, because it's quite clear that we know the answers, but it's now on us to make sure we move forward. So join the Pandemic Podcast mailing list. Go over to danastingregory.com/pandemic. Consider becoming part of our community. If you want to help create the change you want to see in the world, then come and join us. Let's do this together. I'll see you again very soon. My name is Dan Astin-Gregory. What does humanity need right now? You let us know. Let's get to work.